Hi guys, it's time for another story, and I have a story for you today called The Elves and the Shoemaker. And these are the elves here, and look at that beautiful shoe. So shall we find out what happens with the elves and the shoemaker? Here we go. Once there was a famous shoemaker. Lords and ladies loved his beautiful boots, and even kings wore his slippers. But now the shoemaker was old. He had aches and pains from sewing and stitching. No one wanted to buy his shoes or his boots anymore. All day long his shop sat silent and empty. Oh, poor shoemaker. The shoemaker stared at his last piece of leather and sighed. Oh, after this I don't know what we will do. Let's worry about it in the morning, said his wife, as she led him away with a hug. But morning came with a big surprise. There on the workbench sat a fantastic pair of brand new shoes. Who's made the shoes? Because it wasn't the shoemaker, because he and his wife went to bed. Everyone admired the shoes in the window. They were sleek and shiny and perfectly stitched. The shoemaker sold them the moment he opened his shop. The next morning came with an even bigger surprise. 2 pairs of boots stood on the shoemaker's bench, and what incredible boots they were, with twirly pattens and golden toes. Aren't they beautiful? I'd like a pair of boots like that. The shoemaker sold them in a second. Oh my, said a customer, never have I seen such elegant boots. Heavens, gasped another, just look at those laces and handsome high heels. The strange shoe magic continued for weeks. Every morning when the shoemaker woke, there on his workbench were more fabulous shoes. Each day they were finer than the last. Aren't they beautiful? I love shoes. Do you like shoes? Look at these ones. They had shiny buckles, twirly ribbons, and pretty bows tied in leather and lace. Oh, look how busy the shop is now. Word spread the shoemaker is back to his best. People came from far and wide to buy his splendid shoes. But the shoemaker felt strange about this change of fortune. He knew that his shoes were not really his shoes at all. Let's hide in the workshop tonight, he said to his wife. We'll see who's making all these wonderful shoes. That night, the shoe shop door opened with a quiet creak. 2 shadows flitted through the silvery moonlight, and soft feet pottered across the floor. Wonder who it is. 2 tiny creatures in raggedy clothes sprang into the workbench. They were giggling and grinning and dancing and singing. Elves, thought the shoemaker. There, 1, 2. Smiling and singing, the elves set to work, hammering heels, stitching leather, and making fluffy pom-poms. By first light of morning, the latest pair of shoes was finished, and the cheery little elves scampered away. Aren't they beautiful? Lovely pink shoes. So it's the elves that have been sneaking in at night and making the shoes for the shoemaker. The shoemaker gasped, and his wife clasped her hands. What magical creatures, she cried. We must repay their kindness, the shoemaker said. But what can I make for an elf? For the first time in weeks, the shoemaker sat at his workbench, cutting and stitching leather and cloth. He worked and worked all day. His candle burnt down, and his eyes ached in its flickering light. What do you think he's making? finally he was finished. He left what he'd made for the elves to find. Those creatures have given us so many wonderful surprises, he told his wife. Tonight they'll have a surprise of their own. What's he made? The elves squealed with joy when they saw the shoemaker's gift. What stunning new suits, they said in a delight. Such terrific top hats and tails. He made them some new clothes. Oh, isn't that lovely? The elves danced all around the workbench, gleefully singing about their magnificent suits. What happy little elves we are. No longer workmen shall we be. We look so fine in our new suits. No longer shall we stitch new boots. The shoemaker and his wife watched the happy elves skip off into the night. Thanks to the kind little creatures, they could live comfortably for the rest of their lives. The shoemaker never made another pair of shoes, but whenever he thought of the elves, he smiled. He hoped they were still singing and dancing somewhere in their fine hand-stitched suits. Isn't that lovely? And that's the end of the story. So the elves made the shoes for the shoemaker at night, and then for the shoemaker to say thank you, he made them a new outfit. How kind and thoughtful was that? Well, I hope you enjoyed today's story. I'll see you next time. Bye!